Welcome to Everyday Entrepreneurs Everywhere with your host, Chris Parker.
And welcome back to Everyday Entrepreneurs Everywhere. This is Chris Parker, and I am having a conversation with Nienke Bloem. And Nienke is a customer experience expert, and we've known each other, we were discussing it maybe 5, 6, 7 years. And what I'm really looking for today is around that time, the topic of customer experience was still emerging into the business lexicon. And Nienke jumped in completely and has developed games, tactics, services, and I believe is one of the driving forces in the Netherlands around the awareness of customer experience as a skill set and as a need for businesses. So I'm really excited to see from her, where did it start and where is it now and where is it going, and how to be an entrepreneur in the area of customer experience advice. So Nienke, welcome. And could you share with us, what is it that you do and why do you do what you do?
I think that, it's two important questions. First of all, thank you so much for having me on your podcast, Chris. Why do I do what I do? I grew up on an island, and as we both live in the Netherlands, we have a set of islands on the north part, and Texel, the largest one on the north, I grew up on. And when you grow up on an island, you have the island and you have the rest of the world. In Dutch, we call it de overkant, the other side. And I always was like, when I grow up, I want to live on the other side. I want to go to the other side. And I think reaching the other side is something that is part of me. And as I worked 20 years within corporates, after that I did marketing and I started living on the other side. I started living in Alkmaar and after that in Utrecht. And I started working and I actually never really understand why people treated customers in companies like they did. And I just kept on wondering what was going on. And after all my experience in the work part, I started in sales, did marketing, back office and front office, so operations, IT. I led 100 people in IT in an insurance company. And then I did my MBA on HR and everybody around me was like, what are you doing with your career? And I'm like, I don't know really, but I like the jobs I get and I get more experience. And then they were looking for a customer experience manager at KPN, at the Dutch incumbent telco. And I was like, this is where I want to be. So everything tied together, all my experiences. And it was still like reaching the other side because our NPS at that time was minus 14. And all my MBA alumni were like, good luck on this job, making KPN customer centric. That would be the ultimate, reaching the other side. So there's an activist in me. And I want to make the world more beautiful, customers and employees. And I've been doing that actually all my life. But now in the professional part, since I worked at KPN, and we also talked about how young customer experience management is. So up till 2012, I never heard what customer experience was, or I had to Google it when I was asked for the function. So
it's amazing. And I'm about to ask you, what is it for the audience, for those that maybe haven't heard it, but it is amazing how it's kind of one of those things that when you see it, you can't unsee it for me. And maybe people before us, we're standing on the shoulders of giants have, like the Joe Pines and those types of people who, to coin terms of experience economy that maybe started the foundation for some of the refining these techniques and perspectives on business. So what is customer experience management to you? How's that for a broad question?
No, I like the question. Well, for me, it is, and that's also what I love about what you said. If you see it, you can't unsee it. It is watching, customer experience management is adding value to your customers' experiences and making sure that everything you do in your business adds value to that. And actually it is, for me, there's two words within customer experience management that are just of the ultimate important. It's authenticity. So who are you as a company? Are you, when we're looking, for example, at airlines, are you Ryanair or KLM, or what is it that you want to be? And then it's about consistency. So how do you make sure that with everything you do, processes, product, services, your customer contact, how do you make sure that who you want to be, that is delivered time and time again? So customer experience management is really organizing valuable customer experiences for your customers. And the interesting thing is, I think it is kind of still a little bit blue ocean, because when I have conversations in the boardroom and I ask a board, okay, tell me what 4 elements make your customer experiences great. And I give them all 4 Post-it. In the time when we did Post-it, now we do it, of course, virtually. So we give it in a mural or a Miro. And then you see that the words they put in there are so different. So in the boardroom, they often have no idea what they want. And of course, when it's not clear there, it's going to be really messy everywhere. So I think it's a fundamental part, and it's new in the business lexicon. So, but the companies that get it, they really nail it.
They nail it. You mentioned during the why you do this, that you were curious on how Dutch organizations treat their customers.
Yeah.
Can you map that back to that authenticity and consistency point? Meaning, because I have certainly some opinions on why, as I've been said before, why Dutch service sucks. And I'm curious.
Well, tell us first why do you, I heard your speech on it, but if you phrase it for people.
This goes back a while ago, and my own story that I'll just make very, very short. Having worked at Nordstrom and Apple in the States, so I have a certain, and a Disney fan, and I literally have a Mickey Mouse tattoo. So, I am literally tagged with some of these American perspectives of customer service. When I first went to Europe, and it's not necessarily a Dutch thing, but the level of service was not as an American would expect it. And for a very short time, I raged against that. And then I said, well, let me try to understand it. And a couple of the things are I think there's a geopolitical type thing, meaning the density of population, for example, and the availability of options. So in the States, if you go to a grocery store, you will drive, and here you oftentimes won't, at least in the city. And there's 6 to choose from, 6 large grocery stores that have everything. And so just that sort of competition drives a differentiation on service. And then another thing that I discovered is the historical culture of the Netherlands, which is very Calvinist and very prudent and very pragmatic, and quite frankly, don't be silly, and I'm not going to do silly stuff to serve you. And so I think there's a combination of just, heritage.
Want to treat everybody the same. Don't want to make too much exceptions. I think that's true, but still, when I look at the companies that nail it when it comes to customer experience management, they don't have this Dutch attitude, because in the end, everybody, all customers, even the Dutch that may be Calvinist, they want to be treated like a customer, and they want things to meet their needs, that it's easy and enjoyable. And I think that is really that a lot of businesses see that they are missing out. So the good thing is that even the little bit Calvinist companies are really wanting to change. And I think that is also where customer experience management comes in, because we give clarity on how to change. So because the why of change, if people still should we do anything about it? Don't ask me to come, because then you've got some other work to do first. But if you're yes, we want to, this is something we need to work on, because we see that we have too many complaining customers. We're not up in cross-selling enough. And then comes, but how? And that is really what I think, if you systemize customer experience management, it gives meaning and direction to the how, and people know what to start working on. So,
Great point. A question I love asking, and maybe I've asked you in the past before, I love asking customer experience experts is, have you seen an organization make a fundamental transformation in their relationship to their customers or their customer centricity without changing leadership? Meaning, have you seen an executive go from a non-believer into a believer? Or has it usually, in my experience, there's some sort of boardroom shift that creates the space for it? Or what is your perspective on that?
It really helps. I'm going to be honest, if the boardroom doesn't really support CX or the customer experience manager or the transformation, it will take much more time, because if the leadership doesn't show, is not walking the talk and is showing that behavior. Yeah, I don't know if I can say it, but the word asshole behavior, just you have to make an example in how to do it. And if people don't see it, they're not going to do it themselves. But if you're looking at the real big transformation, you need the leadership. But I also see a lot of customer experience managers that maybe don't have the direct support of the board also use excuse behavior like, well, we don't have support from the board and therefore we don't succeed. No. That is too easy. You have to find ways to either gain support from the board. You have to prove the ROI of your initiatives. So I think also the customer experience manager is growing in its business profession on proving the need. And there's just up till now, there have been too many that were more like evangelists. And of course, that's difficult because CEOs don't want evangelists. They want people that can prove and they can add to the bottom line. So
and deliver. And
yes, deliver.
You mentioned words like systematize or operationalize, I think, but were words that were true to my heart. Can you share a little bit on how you help organizations or leaders go from, let's call it a lower or beginning level of maturity to a higher level of performance in customer experience and action and action and measurement, I guess?
Yeah, there's when you look at customer experience management, what I just said is authenticity and consistency, but how do you do that? And within a company, we use the model of the CXPA, so the CXPA framework, and that has 6 axes. And the first one is seek strategy. It always starts there. This is the authenticity. Who do you want to be for your customers? What are your promises? What is your brand promise? What are your customer promises? So you really see that a lot of companies don't have that. Some have a customer manifesto, but then it's very inside out or it's just product related. So it's not the whole customer experience. So I think that is the first fundamental step every organization has to take. And in a book we just wrote, and it's up to now it's out in Dutch, but we're also going to make it in English. Then we say there's actually 3 routes, 3 journeys you can take as a company. And the first one, and it's in time you take all of them, but the first one is really about what we say it's heart, head, and hands. So the 3 elements. So the first one is the head, that we say you have to really listen to your customers. What are they saying? So your insights, get your insights right, your CX insights, make sure that you listen when you have your surveys, and then act upon it. And that's what we always also see with systemizing. Terminology we use in customer experience management is closed loop feedback. So I don't know, do you fill out surveys?
Me? Yeah, all the time. I collect them.
Yeah, well, I collect them too. But I think it's interesting for the people that are listening. Do you fill them out? And if yes, how often do you get something back? Like a reply, or how often do you get something back?
Rarely, yeah.
No, I also fill out everything. I collect them, and I'm a curious person, and it's also part of being like a customer experience professional. You want to see how people, what do they look like? These surveys, what do they ask? How do they measure it? Well, all these kinds of things. I fill them out. I think, let's say 2 a week, and let's say 50 weeks a year. So that's 100 a year, and already for 6 years. So that's about 600 surveys. How often? And I fill them out honestly. So when it's really bad, I say it is really bad. And when it's really good, I say it's really good. Of these 600, how often do you think companies got back to me?
Well, probably 0 or 1%.
A little more. It's a little more than 1%. Yeah. It's 7. Yeah. 7 companies. 7. And that is, I think, the first quick win that companies, a lot of them are sending out surveys, are doing reviews, but they're not acting on this closing the loop. And this is what customer experience management really helps you with. Systemize this. Make sure you know who's responsible, who's reporting, and you have some steps to take, maybe some cheat sheets within a company. How do we do this? Because this is where it starts. So that's the head route. You just get your insight, analyze it, act, and then also change within the company. So when you see, for example, from your surveys that, well, subscription-based companies that have a lot to do with churn, like newspapers, energy, telco, where I used to work, a lot of the customers complain that new customers get more than current customers. And that is things that you just can listen, and then you can think, what should we do to make our current customers feel good? So that is closing the loop, just react and then improve it in the company. The second one is the hands. And that's what we say. A lot of companies are busy with journey mapping. So they look at their processes through the eyes of the customer. And then they just do. They act. They think, what should we do better? What are the moments of truth, moments of pain? Peak and rule, maybe even. The people that are listening, read the book of Daniel Kahneman, Thinking Fast and Slow. You learn all about that. And the third route is that of the heart. And that's about engaging all the employees, the culture part. So that is the pillar where you really engage everything around values. You make sure that leaders walk the talk, that people go listen at the contact centers. You have maybe awards. And that is, you just mentioned Disney. I went to Disney 2 years ago in California. I did the service at the Disney Institute, the service course. And I thought it was so interesting the way they did everything around the culture part. Because everybody at Disney, they breathe Disney. There's nobody who thinks, today I'm going to do it different. No. So those are the three routes. And I think for the people that want to start, please start off with your strategy part. When is your customer experience great? Tell me, what's the 4 or 5 words that identify it?
There's so much we can unpack from there. One little story in my customer survey collection quest. I was in India a number of years ago, and I grabbed one of the surveys and was leaving, and someone ran up and said, where's the survey? Where's the survey? And I was like, well, I collect it. He says, no, you can't. I was like, well, why? He said, well, turn it over. And it was numbered. And he said, no, we have to have these reconciled at the end of the day because management cares about these things. And I was like, oh, wow, that is cool. Here you go. And that was, that was lovely. So going back to peak end rule, Daniel Kahneman or Samson Lee and other people who have sort of, popularized, peak end rule. I think that's profound. I haven't done the psychology around it, but I'm reading people smarter than I, like Kahneman's Thinking Fast and Slow. Can you give a quick synopsis of why the peak end rule is important?
Well, I think very important for everybody. He has a YouTube video that he did for TED, and it's on the experiencing self versus the remembering self. And I think this is a very interesting thing. We experience what he says all day. So, for example, I came from Rotterdam this morning. I went by train. I got a cup of coffee. I was greeted. There was a little girl playing, blah, 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 blah. And then I came home. I petted my cats. I installed my computer. I make sure that I put my makeup on, just to be here. All experiences. And we have those all day and in interaction with others. The thing is, if you ask next month, what do you remember of this day? And that is the interesting part. And that's the remembering self, because we don't remember everything. That's good news. But for companies, I think it's very interesting. What do you want that your customers will remember? And a lot of companies have never thought about that. And I always say great customer experience don't happen by accident because you organize them. That's the quote I always use. So in this case, the remembering self is the most interesting thing. And that's where the peak end rule comes in. What do people remember? It's the peaks. And the peak can be a high peak that was really great or fun or something that touches your heart, especially at live events like marriage, when people pass away, when you have a child that's born, then our emotions are open. So you remember better. Or the peak can be low when things are really bad. These customer experiences that have been just really bad, you never forget them. And the end of an experience is like when you've bought something and, that's the end of an experience. That's also what, so you remember the peak and the end. So.
Love it. Well said. And I share those insights as I go through life. My perspective on customer experience comes from a different angle, because you came in from marketing, service, HR, and I came in from technology. And one of the things that made me an instant fan and advocate of customer experience is if the business, the organization is clear on how they are organizing that experience, to use your words, that gives us from delivery, the clarity of what we need to do well and what we can, probably more importantly, what we can not invest in. So basically what doesn't matter or what matters less, and have some discipline around it. And that is after experiencing millions of euros and dollars of waste in technology projects based on hobby that is not adding value to an actual customer, at least not
No.
that anyone could prove. For me, that the customer experience, this goes back to 2011, 12, around the same time that you came across it. I was like, if we can get this right, then that makes my life as a CIO so much easier. And then and then off we went. One of the things that I have seen you do is at I think it was at the hospitality school in Amsterdam. We were doing an event together somehow. I'm not even sure what the event was, but you had
I think it was called Sex in the City.
well, we've had Sex in the City in the past, or I mean, at least we've performed at Sex in the City in the past. But we didn't do it at the hospitality school. I think that it might have been a Stan Phelps visit or something. But
something like that. Yeah, and we did it with Diego, with the people there. Yeah.
So which is a great, wonderful experience, wonderful people, warm welcome, and you had a board game that triggered people to think about customer experience, and I think what I remember is a very holistic way. And you also shared with me that it's now online. Can you tell us a bit about this board game and what it can mean for people?
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you for introducing us there, because the hospitality school, the hotel school, which is one of the best ranked, I think, in Europe, they became a client of us. So we play now the game, or they play the game. We did a trainer for them. So all students, when they start, they play the game now to understand what customer experience management is. So I think so. Thank you.
I love that.
I think it's interesting as I travel, like you did also. You also do a lot of speaking, right? Mm-hmm. And when you travel the world, and especially for in-company speaking, we traveled the world, of course, till March last year. But you also do a lot of workshops. And when you speak, of course, I do a lot of sending and you do some interaction. But when you're on a stage with 1,000 people, that is still, people want to hear stories and they want to get inspired. This one thing that they can change. But then afterwards, you do workshops. And I think the workshops were always good, but still, especially in company parts, some people are just sent by their bosses and they're actually there and they just don't care. And I dare to say that my workshops were always fun and good, but still some people in the back of the room could just sit in. And I hated that. I was like, can't we think of a way that I can do a workshop that everybody has to participate? And then one day I was playing a game and I was like, I should create a game much more into a fun part and that everybody has to join in. And I discussed with a partner, and actually this is how we, in an agile way, we created this game. And it is a workshop, but it's dressed up as a game. It's a large board, and we still have it. It's like a tablecloth, and everybody gathers around it and they play and they battle against each other, and there's a winner. And people get the awareness of what is customer experience management. And the good thing is, especially if we do it in company, we can add value by adding the company context, the company challenges, and get some real quick wins for them already. And for now, we also now play it in the virtual world. So we have it in Miro and we work with Zoom, and then it really has the same effect. So it's actually a really fun workshop, and that it's also sold a lot now in company, so that we train people within the company. So a lot of customer experience managers that have to get awareness. For example, if you are customer experience manager in an insurance company, you have a team of 8, and you need to engage 2,000 people, that we train you to do the game, and then they can play it themselves. So it's licensed, and I must say, we just one by one. Mm-hmm. And we also added now the employee experience game for the HR part. So we're building out the business on that part a little bit.
Outstanding. Tell us more about the business, about the Nienke Bloem empire and enterprises.
My Nienke Bloem empire. Well, I'm going to be honest. When it's also, you asked, why do you do what you do? And the interesting thing is, sometimes you really are, you have a vision, this is what I want to be. And I always thought there's going to be one day that I'm going to be an entrepreneur, but I never knew in what. So in 2014, a former colleague of mine, he died. And I just bought the apartment I live in now. I live in an old hospital in Utrecht, and I was sitting here. And on that evening, I I had this apartment for a week, and when I was young, when I got new shoes, I always wanted to wear them already, and now I had this apartment, I wanted to sleep in it, but there was nothing in it, so I had this aero bed, and I had a bottle of wine and some crisps, and then I heard that he died, and I was here on my own, and I was like, okay, I first ever in my life I felt I was mortal too, and I'm like, okay, I'm 42, and we had conversations like, do you dare to dream and do you live your dream? And I always said, yeah, look at me. I'm living this dream and I have a great job at KPN and I can do whatever I want. And then when he died, I'm like, all right, but when I look closer, is this really a dream? But what is my dream? And it was silent. I didn't know what my dream was. So I'm like, okay, wine, crisps. And I took a piece of paper and just wrote down, what is my dream? And somewhere out of there, it just came out of here, I want to be an international speaker. And I'm like, okay, that's new. And then I just wrote out what I wanted to do. I want to help other companies. I want to be really the best CX leader I can ever be. I want to have more adventures. And I want to know what happens if I close the door behind me. Especially when you work 13 years with an insurance company. That is not what you do, right? You just live this secure life of being an employee. Mm-hmm. That was on a Friday night. And I explored in the weekend, what are my mental obstructions? Why don't I want to do it? Am I good enough? Money? Do I dare? And I left after the whole bottle of wine was down. I'm like, all right, I know. I've got to quit my job. So that was in June 2014. And the Monday I quit my job. And they asked me to do for the board of directors, I needed to do a customer journey mapping project that was really great. So on the 1st of January 2015, I was an entrepreneur. And I put in my LinkedIn, international speaker, but that was it. So, and then you just I needed to do a little bit of rehab from 20 years of corporate life because you think that is normal. Everybody who's listening, it's not normal. It's different. So I did like 2 or 3 months soul searching, getting a little bit disconnected from the corporate life and learning what it was to be an entrepreneur. Spoke a couple of times, had to find out what are fees in speaking world. What does an offer look like? Oh, you need to have a video reel. Oh, really? Okay. So I've got all these things I had to find out. Now we're 6 years ahead. I have an international speaking business. I have my game. I do a lot on education, especially since Corona. I think where I did like 40% of my business was in speaking and the game, and the rest was education and consultancy. I think last year and next year is going to be 80% education. I do a lot of in-company education journeys, building. I have my master classes. I'm one of the 14 recognized training partners of the CXPA globally. We almost have 80 CCXPs in the Netherlands, which is humongous when you know there's 1,100 in the world, something 11 or 1,200. And well, the Dutch, we have 17 million people. So we are having many, many more CCXPs. And I think one of the reasons is that I do my education. I inspire people to do that. So it is all around CX, and people like working with me because I promise I make customer experience work. So I make sure that you know what to do and how to do it. So no just talks, but practical. And the honest Dutch truth, Chris, you know, they don't polish it.
No, they don't beat around the bush there. They call it as it is. And the Americans can call it abrupt or rude, or you could call it just refreshing and honest. So
a client called me the velvet sledgehammer, and I'm like, okay, that's good enough for me.
Velvet sledgehammer. So maybe we should change the title of this podcast. No, we will leave it as customer experience expert, I think.
Yeah.
Who's the perfect customer for you? So if you have this sort of portfolio of capabilities, what is the most delightful time, meaningful time, authentic time that you have had or you want to have? Meaning, how would you craft that?
I like that question. Of course, you're like, I have, when I look at the portfolio, I have my education, I have my game, I have my speaking, and I have a little bit of consultancy. I cannot do a lot of consultancy, so like 1 or 2 customers that I can do, and that is it. And what I really like is customers that trust you so much, is that you are growing with them into their business. So I had my first consultancy client in 2015 is a small in the global economy, a small medium-sized company. At that time, there were 100 employees. Right now, they're 175. And all the 6 years I've been in business, I've been growing with them. Either I played the game or I did workshops. And last year, they asked me back to do a little bit of consulting. So those are my clients. I also really love it. For example, one of the municipalities of the Netherlands, one of the teams wanted my masterclass where I really teach what is customer experience management, and we create a roadmap together. And then the director of the team, she was so enthusiastic that she said, we have to have this in the whole board, because in the board, we need to have the same conversation. So then I did the masterclass in the board. And now one of the board members said, we need this also. So I like these like domino effects where you grow together and it grows the seed, and you see that the impact on the customer. With the municipality, it's the civilian or the entrepreneur or the visitor. And I like that. And I like it when there's like chemistry. And also sometimes you have clients when the chemistry is not there, when they say they want a masterclass, and when you have a conversation. And as I'm honest, I also say I do a lot of research beforehand. I make things always tailor-made. So when I do my research and I see that on a customer experience side, some things are missing, or they don't do review management or all kinds of stuff that I see and I like to bring in. And they're like, is that important? I'm like, yes. And then they start having like a conversation with me, and I'm like, yeah, then you should not have hired me.
Yeah.
You're not.
I think it goes back to that openness, or that curiosity, or that willingness to embrace. Because you talked about the different paths into it. And if you have a customer experience manager without a supportive executive team, I think, yes, there is definitely possibilities, but that person will most likely suffer. And that makes me sad,
Yeah, but it's also interesting. Last year, did your business do good in Corona? Can I ask you that, Chris? Is it?
Yeah.
Well,
my business is attached to oftentimes my time. Yeah. And I have a portfolio of projects I work on. And I've also been able to have, the moment for the podcast. So is it perfect? Well, by no means, but it's, we've survived.
I'm going to be honest, for me, business-wise, 2019 was my best year ever. And last year I had 25% less, because in March I was in Australia, I was speaking, and already my team was like, many people are just postponing, and I was fully booked up till October with speaking engagement. And of course, everything just got annulled or just canceled or postponed. And I really wrote, as a businesswoman, I had to write a new strategy. And I think that worked really well. But I also said, I need to create a new product, because a lot of people did my masterclass, and I did in company, but also a lot of open masterclasses. And up till now, I think 300 people, and a lot of them like, I want to do the next step. So I said, now is the time to, because I think a lot of the consulting, especially with companies that are hit, they will do maybe less consulting, but they will still have education budget. So I created a masterminds program for customer experience managers, and I introduced it. And it was, I never thought, but it was more like a test. Let's see how the marketing, and I just had, it was fully booked. And I was kind of shocked. I'm like,
Yeah, I think on my side, because I haven't yet made that full transition to speaking and courses, that I was more immune to it, because I'm still doing consulting with a portfolio of customers, and the portfolio shifted a bit, but and now I'm actually going through the process of trying to dial down some of the hourly invoiceable project in order to bring this ebullient and this simplicity as a need in the market. And for me, it's also like the simplicity scan that we've developed, which is a little bit like your game, but not quite as fun. It's much more intellectual. Embedded in that is what I call journey, and it's about the customer touch points. And so many people aren't aware of what that is. And the reason I put it in there, just as the word journey, is to use a word that they haven't really heard before to stimulate that conversation. So what I'm planning to do, and this will evolve over time, is to push out some more online courses and maybe what I call a simple mind, which is a mastermind around simplicity. And that's coming soon. So in a weird way, the current business kept me comfortable. So maybe I hadn't needed to make that shift and that pivot that you did. So
yeah, I had to, but also it was something that was on my bucket list already for a year, because the year before I always wrote that I want that. But when you're just really busy with delivery of your courses and things are running, you don't have the time to do business development. And I also said to the team, I want to this year or last year, I said, I want to keep my assistant. So that means that we have to find new ways of revenue. We have to find new revenue streams. So it brought out something different in me as an entrepreneur. And I also like, I don't know who the quote is from, but move before you're ready. It is a quote that is really me. I just think of an idea, I put it out there, I start building the marketing front. And that, of course, I didn't have my mastermind ready yet. I had like contours of what I'm going to deliver, but how I was going to do it, I had no clue. First, I have to have customers. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs want everything done, and especially female customers are, I think, a little bit more risk averse. So they want everything planned out, and I'm not that type of person. So I just create with the team, create all the marketing, create the funnels, and then we'll see. And then if people start buying it, yes, then we need to create it. And I like the move before you're ready.
Yeah, move before you're ready. Or I heard it repeated towards me. In fact, I think the power of imperfect action, meaning just get moving.
Oh, I love that.
And and yeah, so I had with a dear friend who's also acting sometimes as a coach, saying, "Well, are you sure you need to do that, and that before you do this?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know, but right this day I'm going to keep doing that." So it's so last question before we wrap up. Thank you. This has been delightful. During you as an entrepreneur, as a human, as a person going through this, 2015, checked out of the corporate game and checked into the entrepreneurial game. There's been ups and downs. We have a global. How do you maintain your self energy and keep going, and perhaps not give up and go get a job again? So what is it that?
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, I'm going to be honest. Right now, it's February, and I find life sometimes a little bit boring. I used to be traveling a lot. It was the bubbly part. And then I find my stability at home, my quietness. But now you're at home all the time. So I find it sometimes difficult right now to motivate myself. But the good thing is what motivates me is my clients, my customers. But not only that, also my business partners. So with the game, I worked with Babs Asselbergs. With the masterclass, I work with Jaap Wilms. For my consultancy, I often work with Kirkman Company. And I have my team. So I really have this environment of people that when I'm down, some of them lifts me up. When they are down, I lift them up. And I think I am blessed. You probably know the Duracell battery rabbit. Yeah. The bunny. Yeah. I kind of am like. Yeah, I am a lucky girl that I have a full battery, and I take good care of me because and that's also people say I'm a morning person. So I wake up like 5:36. I do my miracle morning. So I meditate every day. I do my writing. I do my sports. I eat healthy. And sometimes we do crazy. Of course, we drink some wine. We eat some foods. We go to a bar. Well, not now, but normally. But my life is... I have my rituals that I do for a long, long time. And that keeps me sane. Maybe that. I don't know.
Beautiful. So Nienke Bloem, and you can find her at nienkebloem.nl. And that's Nienke, Nienke Bloem, Bloem. Otherwise known as the Velvet Sledgehammer. We have learned today.
In a blue dress, huh? In a blue dress, always.
Velvet Sledgehammer in a blue dress. You do have that. Seems it's
my brand.
That's your brand. You are always in a blue dress, and it looks marvelous.
Always.
And you are also living the lifestyle of the Duracell rabbit. So that's cool. For organizations, and again, what Nienke is working on, I think, is so important. Not only because it creates more business value, you stop torturing your customers, But it creates a space for your employees to be more happy and to connect to the business in a more authentic and meaningful way. So everybody wins. So I would deplore you if you are an executive or a customer experience manager and you have this itch that you can do things better. Please check into Nienke, play the game, take the masterclass. That's her. Thank you, Nienke.
Thank you so much, Chris, and take care.
Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to the podcast on your favorite player and download the Simplicity Kit from ebullient.com.